No gold is not in her. She's a diamond.
Welcome back to my channel. Let's talk about something interesting today. 5 inventions that changed the world, for better or for the worst. But first, subscribe to the channel and give a thumbs up. Okay, here we go. First on the list is the revolver. Samuel Colt produced the first revolver capable of firing 5 or 6 times without reloading. It was equipped with a cylinder containing chambers into which bullets were loaded. The cylinder would revolve with each cock of the hammer, enabling each chamber to lock into position behind the barrel and discharge the bullet with a pull of the trigger. In anticipation of demand for the revolver, Colt opened a manufacturing plant, but poor sales forced its closure. Colt's fortunes changed after favorable reports from U.S. troops fighting in Florida and Texas instigated a government order for 1,000 pistols. With the assistance of Eli Whitney Jr., Colt opened the world's biggest armory in Hartford, Connecticut, developing a production line of handguns and interchangeable parts. By 1856 the company was gaining a reputation around the world for exceptional quality and workmanship, and Colt soon became one of the wealthiest businessmen in the United States. Secondly, we have the pneumatic tire. Scottish-born engineer Robert William Thomson left school at age 14, but within a couple of years he had managed to teach himself astronomy, chemistry, physics of electricity. By the time he was 17, he had his own workshop. Then at the age of 23, he patented the aerial wheel now known as the pneumatic tire. The tires consisted of a hollow belt of rubber that could be inflated with a cushion of air to the ground, rail, or track on which they run. The idea was to provide people traveling over bumpy ground with a smoother ride. Unfortunately for Thomson, in 1845 there were no cars to take advantage of the new tire, nor were there any bicycles. The only applications of his innovation were a few steam-powered carriages together with the traditional horse-drawn carriages. Thomson, however, arranged for some journalists to watch him demonstrate the advantages of his cushioned wheel at Regent's Park in London. He had 2 carriages, one with old wheels and one fitted with pneumatic tires. Many of the observers had presumed that the pneumatic tires would make it harder to pull a carriage because the tires were soft. However, Thomson proved them wrong, and he also showed that his tires produced a tiny fraction of the noise made by the traditional solid wheel. Thirdly, we have the blender. Although ubiquitous in modern kitchens, the blender started life as a tool for the soft drinks industry, designed to mix malted milkshakes. By the 1920s both milkshakes and malted milk drinks were extremely popular. However, malted milk powder was developed as a hot drink and so often clumped together when mixed with cold milk, resulting in a lumpy milkshake. This problem was overcome in 1922 when Stephen Poplawski invented the blender. His design had small spinning blades, driven by an electric motor, at the bottom of a tall container into which all the ingredients would be added and mixed. The device also resulted in a lighter, frothy drink, forever changing the consistency of milkshakes and at the same time paving the way for the smoothie. With modifications by Fred Ogius and some nifty marketing by Fred Waring, the blender soon found its way into hotels and restaurants, and by the 1950s, was flying into the kitchens of many households. At 4 we have the ring pull. The canned drink is one of the most familiar and practical inventions of the 20th century. Until Emil Fraise came along, the problem was how to open them. Before his ring pull, cans had to be opened with a church key, a tool similar to a bottle opener but with a sharp point at either end. One end was used to make a hole in the top to drink from, and the other to make a smaller hole for air to enter, allowing the liquid inside to escape. Fraise struck upon the idea of the ring pull when he was at a picnic and had forgotten his church key. Like most people of that time, he was aware that it was easy to injure yourself while trying to open a can with a sharp object. In the event he managed to improvise by using the car fender to open his drinks, but he realized that it would be much simpler if cans would always be opened without a separate tool. Fraise's invention went through several stages that culminated in the pull-top can. Similar to today's cans, this had a small tab of metal, the edge of which was scored, attached by a rivet to a ring. By pulling the ring, the tab would be pulled out of the can, opening a hole that was large enough to let both air in and liquid out. Fraze's innovation was the rivet, and his invention proved a hit. It was first picked up by the Pittsburgh Brewing Company in the early 1960s, and by 1965 more than 75% of brewers in the United States were using his pull top, although the patent was not awarded to him until 1967. Lastly, we have the laser-guided weapon. In 1962, the United States Air Force began research into developing a laser-guided weapon that could be used to target stationary targets accurately. During World War II, unguided bombs dropped by aircraft caused immense damage, but many bombs were often required to hit one target successfully. From a military perspective, the risk to bomber pilots from anti-aircraft fire had been great, and there had been a terrible toll of deaths and injuries among civilians at some distance from the actual targets. By 1967, the U.S. Air Force had produced the first laser-guided bomb, the Bolt 117, and were able to use it during the Vietnam War the following year. This breakthrough in ordnance capability turned unguided, dumb bombs, which simply falls to the ground, into precision-guided, smart bombs. Laser-guided bombs rely upon the target being illuminated by a laser beam from the releasing aircraft, an accompanying aircraft, or a unit operating on the ground. The laser light reflects off the target to form an inverted cone, or basket. After releasing the bomb, personnel in the aircraft direct it to the cone by means of signals sent to the bomb control fins. However, early use of laser-guided bombs proved to be literally hit or miss. If pilots were faced with bad weather, the weapon became virtually redundant. Refinements in laser and computer technology led to more sophisticated and deadly laser guides missiles. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and give it a like.